Qatar Airways has been repeatedly ranked as one of the world's best airlines, boasting one of the best business class seats in the sky. But what's it like to fly in the back of the plane? Today we're going to find out, as we've analyzed the seats, the food, the entertainment, and the connecting experience on board Qatar Airways Airbus A350 from Singapore to Doha and then on to Dubai, so that we can finally figure out once and for all if Qatar Airways economy class is truly the world's best. My journey begins this morning in Singapore, as I'm on my way to Changi Airport on board the MRT, which takes about 40 minutes from the city center. Qatar uses Terminal 1 at Changi Airport, which is the oldest terminal here, yet it's still very clean and efficient, located just a short walk away from the MRT station. Check-in was also super quick and easy, although I did arrive at the airport only about an hour before departure, which I knew would be okay as our inbound aircraft was delayed coming in from Doha. I'll be flying on board one of Qatar Airways Airbus A350-900s today, which operates one of the airline's 3 daily flights between their Doha hub and Singapore. My final destination is actually Dubai today, so normally I'd try to fly nonstop on Emirates or Singapore Airlines, which are both excellent. But Qatar was charging less than half the price of these 2 airlines, so I'm happy to make a short deviation through Doha to save the money and check out how Qatar Airways compares these days. One of my favorite things about Singapore's Changi Airport is all the hidden gardens and relaxation spaces that I always seem to discover for the first time, even though this is my home airport, such as this outdoor discovery garden with nice views of aircraft parked at the apron of Terminal 1. One thing I do not like as much about Changi Airport, though, is that security isn't centralized, but rather conducted at every individual gate, which often means long lines as there's only 2 security rows per gate. Thankfully, things are moving quickly today, and we now have a great view of our ride for the 8-hour hop to Doha this afternoon. Alpha 7 Alpha Mike Juliet is a 2019-built Airbus A350-900. Qatar has 34 of these A350-900s in their fleet, alongside 24 of the larger A350-1000s, giving the airline the largest fleet of A350s in the world. And that's great news for passengers, if you ask me, because the A350 is one of the most comfortable aircraft you'll find in the sky, as you'll soon see. Let's go get on board. This aircraft is fitted with the excellent Q-Suite business class product, which is arguably the world's best, and I actually have a review of it coming out really soon, so make sure you're subscribed with bell notifications on so that you don't miss it. Behind business class is where we're headed today, in the 333 configured economy class, with 247 seats spread out across 2 very large cabins. These seats are super modern, and I found them quite spacious and comfortable. Each seat features an adjustable headrest, and waiting at each seat are a pillow, a blanket, a pair of headphones, and even an amenity kit. We'll take a closer look at all of these things in a moment, but I must just say that for an 8-hour daytime flight, it is really impressive to get all these things. In front of you, there's a large, very responsive touchscreen, and we'll of course take a look at the entertainment offering once we get airborne. Each seat also has both a USB port and a full universal power port, plus a very well-designed 3-pocketed seatback pocket, which is great for storing both small and larger items. The tray table is extendable and quite sturdy, and the seats even feature quite good legroom with 31 inches of seat pitch. Above each seat are individual reading lights, as well as adjustable air vents, which can be super important in a place that gets as warm as Doha does. All in all, this is a really impressive seat, and certainly one of the best you'll find in the sky.
We close the door shortly now, and we'll start the engines, and then we'll taxi for about 10 to 15 minutes on the ground before our departure. We'll take off on a north heading, and as you can see outside, we have a bit of a rainy day. Temperature is 27 degrees Celsius and light wind from the north. We do expect some turbulence after takeoff. and throughout the climb, please keep your seatbelt fastened when you see it. And we'll be cruising today at 43,000 feet above sea level, and the trip time from takeoff to landing, it's about 7 hours and 40 minutes, 40. For landing in Doha, I'll come back to you with the latest weather forecast, and for now, I'll leave you in safe hands of ours.
Ladies and gentlemen, unlikely event of a decompression if you are wearing a protective mask.
As we begin to cruise over Malaysia towards the Middle East, let's take a look at the amenity kit that was waiting for us when we got on board. It's first of all really important just to mention how rare and how impressive it is to get an amenity kit on an economy class flight at all these days, especially on an 8-hour daytime flight. Inside the amenity kit, we get an eye mask, earplugs, socks, and a toothbrush with some toothpaste. These things are really great to have. I especially appreciate the toothbrush, which comes in really important on a long trip. The provided headphones, which are also World Cup branded, are okay, although they're not the best I've seen in the sky. As always, bring your own headphones, as they'll almost always be better than whatever you get on board in economy class on just about any airline. The pillow, meanwhile, is alright, although it does have that rather scratchy single-use plastic cover which many airlines use. Some airlines, like Singapore Airlines, actually use cloth pillow covers in economy class, and I find those much more comfortable. Lunch was served about a half hour after takeoff, with a choice between Singaporean chicken rice, beef goulash with mashed potatoes, and vegetarian stir-fried noodles. I went with the chicken rice, which was served alongside a barley and pomegranate salad, as well as some chocolate mousse. The meal is also served with a slice of bread, a water bottle, and another drink. I'm really impressed with how well this meal was presented, with the fancy-looking, reusable plastic plateware and some very solid metal cutlery, which is always great to have in economy class. And not only that, but this food was also really, really tasty. This wasn't quite the style of chicken rice that you usually get in Singapore, but I found the flavors to be rich and the portion size to be great. I actually asked the crew to take a look at the beef goulash with mashed potatoes, which was also quite tasty, although a little bit oily for my taste. Nonetheless, this is a really, really impressive meal service, and I can say with confidence that the in-flight meals in economy class on Qatar Airways are certainly some of the best in the sky. After the meal service, the crew passed out some little Austrian chocolate wafers, which was also a really nice palate cleanser. As we cruise west over the Indian Ocean, let's check out Qatar's in-flight entertainment system, or X1. The system has a very easy to navigate modern interface and one of the largest collections of content I've seen in the sky, with lots of new movies and TV shows. I also love that they have whole seasons of most TV shows too, instead of just a few one-off episodes, as some airlines unfortunately have on board. I usually prefer watching TV to movies on airplanes, as it makes the time pass faster because you've got more content to watch, so this is really awesome in my book. There's also a bunch of World Cup related content, and my favorite feature, of course, the great onboard live cameras, including a tail camera. With all this content and a great interactive moving map on a very reactive modern touchscreen, I have nothing but high marks to give Qatar Airways in-flight entertainment system. It's certainly up there with Singapore Airlines Chris World and Emirates ICE systems as some of the best in the sky. About 2 hours prior to landing, the crew came around with a second, smaller meal service, with a hot, all-day snack consisting of a choice between a chicken or vegetable calzone, which was served alongside a banana muffin, and a drink of your choice. A second hot meal service is probably expected during a 7.5-hour daytime flight, but it's still great to have here, and I did find the snack to be perfectly tasty, if nothing extraordinary. All of this is to say I was perfectly full during this flight. And pretty soon, we're on our descent into Doha.
Thank you.
Since so many of Qatar Airways passengers are connecting through Doha, I'll show off what that experience looks like too, as I think the passenger experience on Qatar Airways is as much determined by the on-ground experience at Doha's Hamad Airport as it is by the in-the-air experience on board an airplane. Qatar's hub at Doha's Hamad Airport is one of my favorite airports in the world, and I think you'll see why. Unfortunately, I've heard that a large portion of flights park at a remote stands and require buses to the terminal, which can be pretty brutal in the Middle Eastern heat, but thankfully that's not going to be the case for us today. When you step into the terminal, the first thing you notice is how open and airy it feels, with tall ceilings and lots of natural light. I was in Emirates Dubai hub recently, and I spoke about how crowded that airport felt, which just frankly isn't a problem I've ever encountered here in Doha. Unfortunately, you do need to re-clear security to enter the terminal area, which can be quite time-consuming during peak periods in my experience, although thankfully today things move swiftly and we're quickly heading down the escalator into the main terminal. At the center of the terminal is this giant lamp bear statue, which has always confused me, but it is a cool anchor for the airport. Today, I'm really interested in seeing the newest section of the terminal that just opened for the World Cup, so I hopped on the intra-terminal train, which saves a few minutes of walking. This new extension of the airport is called the Orchard, which looks oddly similar to another extension of another major airport that you may have seen recently. Now, putting aside that this is pretty clearly just a copy of Singapore Changi's Jewel, this is actually a really nice space. It lets in tons of natural light, and it makes for an interesting, restful place to wait for your flight that feels genuinely disconnected from the chaos that usually surrounds airports. Obviously, you're not going to trick yourself into thinking you're in a forest or anything here, but this is very clearly better than just sitting on a bench somewhere in a crowded gate area. As I head back towards the main part of the terminal while the sun sets, you really do get an appreciation for how much natural light filters into this terminal. It truly is an awesome space, and as odd as this may sound, it does make for a genuinely pleasant transit experience. Unfortunately, I can't quite say the same for the gate experience, as for some incomprehensible reason, you board into a closed-off gate area that you can't leave, where you have to sit until your flight is actually ready for boarding. You don't need to go through security or anything to get in this gate area, but you still are kind of trapped in here once you enter, and there's no bathrooms or anything. So, as pleasant and grand as that main terminal may be, you're still required to spend a good chunk of time sitting in the often overcrowded gate areas. Thankfully, my flight to Dubai tonight is pretty empty, but that's certainly not always the case. My ride to Dubai is on board another Airbus A350, this time an Airbus A350-1000, fitted with the same seats as my previous flight had. So I won't review the cabin product again, but of course, it is a very comfortable seat, especially for a 35-minute flight.
Baggage should be securely stowed in the overhead compartments or under the smoking policy at all times on board all our aircraft. Electronic smoking devices are also...
Takeoff and landing. Please take care not to let them fall down the side of the seat. And if you notice any device...
On a 35-minute long flight, I certainly would not expect any meal service. But somehow, Qatar Airways actually manages to make a quick meal service on this flight. There's no choice, of course. There wouldn't even be time to ask people what they wanted. But getting food on a flight this short is really something I've never seen before. Each passenger gets a little bottle of orange juice alongside an Arabic mezze platter with couscous and hummus, as well as some heated Arabic bread. I can't quite articulate how surprising or impressive it is to get a meal service at all on a flight this short, but the food was also surprisingly tasty, really well tuned for this region, and sized just right for this very short flight. Honestly, this might be the most impressive thing that I've seen this entire day. And just like that, we're on approach to Dubai. So, how's Qatar Airways economy class? Well, I think it goes without saying that Qatar Airways is clearly one of the world's best airlines. The seats, the meals, the in-flight entertainment, and the onboard services are all top-notch. The question in my mind is how well Qatar compares to its top-class rivals, such as Singapore Airlines and Emirates, which I keep alluding to. I'd say that in terms of onboard experience, Qatar certainly keeps up with its rivals. The seats are perfectly comfortable and very modern. The A350, which we've been flying on a lot today, is of course an incredibly pleasant aircraft to fly on board. The entertainment options have been excellent, and the food has been plentiful and delicious. Qatar Airways' Doha hub is also one of the best out there, and connecting through it was, in my experience, mostly a breeze, save for that gate area experience. The crews on board were pleasant, although perhaps not quite as outgoing as I've seen on Singapore Airlines, but perhaps that's just a different in-service attitude. And beyond that, there really isn't much to criticize here, particularly given that they tend to charge lower fares than many of their competitors. So if you're wondering if you should fly Qatar Airways, I can honestly say that they're one of the best in the business, and it's absolutely worth it to fly them. And with that, welcome to Dubai. Thank you so much for flying with me today, and I really hope that you enjoyed this review of Qatar Airways Airbus A350s. Please let me know if you have any feedback that could possibly improve these videos, including how you like the voiceover that I'm trying out in this video. And I look forward to seeing you again in the sky very, very soon.
Today, yes. And I have tickets.